I'm calling this meeting to order, Public Works Committee of City of Hudson, Monday, June 13th. I'm Joy Knudsen, alderperson from District 3. I chair the Public Works Committee. We have with us our staff members, Mike Moraz, Director of Public Works, and Dean Chamberlain, our city engineer. Would you call the roll, please?
Mike Kennedy.
Here.
Sarah Brook.
Here.
Here. Okay, first item of business is we need to approve the minutes from the last meeting. Is there any comments from anyone?
I'll make the motion to approve those minutes.
Okay.
I'll second.
Motion and second that we accept the minutes from the past meeting. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, minutes are accepted. Our first item of business today, well, we do have a public comment session, but I've spoken with the citizens present today that they're going to speak during the agenda item. So we'll go ahead with our new business, item 5A, which our residents here are from the Carmichael Ridge development and the HOA. So I would like to start, Dean, would you like to start explaining, going through our issue sheet there, please?
Yes, good
Sidewalk
evening,
and curb
Public
project.
Works Committee. We have an annual sidewalk and curb project that we generally do in the city of Hudson every year. We took a break last year with this project because of the Highway 35 project, but typically we have an annual sidewalk and curb replacement or addition in places that we didn't have them before kind of project. So the last one we had was in 2020. Generally, staff's focus in the last few years have been to use this project to correct like the kind of really bad tripping hazards in particular, because they seem to be kind of the most safety benefit for the buck, so to speak. We have quite a few in town, so it's been taking a little while to check those all off the list, so to speak. And always, we also look at things like places where we don't have adequate drainage, with maybe adding curb or tweaking curb or that kind of thing. And so with this year's project, we also have the kind of added feature of including some sidewalk and curb replacements that were damaged from last fall's windstorm. And a lot of those areas are kind of down in the historic core part of Hudson, mostly kind of bounded between about 3rd Street and 11th Street, and then about from Walnut up to Orange or so. That's just general location. So on the issue sheet, I noted kind of the general areas of the sidewalk and curb project. A lot of the spots are in the Grandview Drive kind of north end area between Ash Drive and North Ridge Drive, and then a little bit along North Ridge as well. We have some other locations such as kind of the end of the Crestview Drive cul-de-sac, addition of curb along 17th Street between Cooley and Ward where there wasn't any before. A few spots along Center Drive, there's a few spots up in the Coachlight, East Canyon kind of area, and then like I said, the downtown residential neighborhoods for storm damage replacement, and then addition of a sidewalk along the north side of Burton Park, where for some reason there was never a sidewalk installed along the north side there, even though there's sidewalks on either end of the block. So we're also considering using a little bit of the project funds to test drive a mud jacking project as an alternative to panel replacement for some things, just to see if it's effective and see if it's worth using in the future, that kind of thing. And so we also have received a request from the Carmichael Ridge Homeowners Association in regards to installing curb ramps at 3 different intersections in the development, Hillcrest and Hinsdale, Hillcrest and Halston, Hillcrest and Bridle. So the curb ramps would be from the existing trail to the curb on the east side of the street. We're not, adding sidewalks all over creation out there, but at least to get people from the cul-de-sac up to the path. And so based on the city's current special assessment policy, addition of those curb ramps where there aren't any right now, which there aren't any right now, will be 100% 100% accessible to the homeowners association. I've been in contact with Joe Dardis from the Homeowners Association, kind of in regards to what the HOA is looking for and with approximate costs. So adding 3 pedestrian ramps would be about $22,000, a little over $22,000, which would be, according to our current policy, 100% specially assessed. Joe asked that we allow for some conversation about that. The HOA wanted to kind of present a little bit of their need, and so we've got a couple representatives of the HOA here tonight. So if you guys want to
Before
sorry.
they speak,
Yep.
could I ask
Yeah.
you just to clarify
Yes.
a couple of things? So the listed streets there, you have identified over the course of time
Yes.
that need improvements.
Yep.
So could you clarify when you say storm damage, what's happening there?
Yeah.
The sidewalks that suffered storm damage.
Yeah, so last year when we had that very significant windstorm that knocked over a whole bunch of trees, a lot of those trees were located in the boulevard area, so they were city trees. And so when they tipped over, the root system of those trees, especially those old mature ones, are very large. And so when the storm blew them over, the tree roots essentially popped the sidewalks out of the ground on the other side. And so Mike's staff last fall came through and put some gravel at least in there, so that's not a lingering safety hazard while we were kind of waiting for this to go through. And so the city, and Mike can correct me if I'm wrong, is going through an insurance claim with our insurance to pay for those sidewalk replacements that were due to the damage from the trees toppling over.
Do you anticipate that the insurance will pay?
Yeah, once
For those.
this is approved, I'll reach back out to them and submit that claim to
Okay,
them. So
sure.
Yep.
So if you have a segment of sidewalk that suffered storm damage, you likely won't have to pay for it as the adjacent property owner. Otherwise, other sidewalks that have heaved or cracked or are deemed unsafe, the adjacent property owner has to pay how much?
Replacement is 50%.
Replacement is 50% of the cost. And how are they billed for that?
So it goes through the special assessment process, and it's a long, convoluted process, but due to state statutes. But essentially what will happen is once the project, if it goes through tonight, I should say, preface that with this, it'll be on the agenda for next Monday's council meeting. That will start the assessment process with what's called a preliminary resolution. Essentially, city council, if they adopt this, essentially what that resolution will say is the city intends to pursue special assessments for this project because of XYZ matches our city assessment policy, that kind of thing. Those all get mailed out to the affected potential property owners, and then there will be a public hearing set July 18th for anybody who wants to come before city council and say, usually it's I don't agree with this, but they can say whatever they want, essentially regarding the project. And then at that point in time, city council will then adopt the assessments if they choose to do so.
And then there's options of
Yep.
how quickly you pay for it, extended over
Yep.
your.
So there's two
different
different options. One is to pay in full, and that payment is due by November 1st of this year. That allows you to pay without interest, which is always good, especially with interest rates going up right now. The other option, if you don't have the assessment amount in hand, would be to allow it to go to property taxes. So in that case, it gets collected by the county with your property taxes every year, that kind of thing, with interest, but split over a certain period of years. So depending on how much your assessment amount is, it varies between 1 year and 10 years. It's usually kind of in the 2 to 3 to 5 year time frame with the amount of assessments we're talking about right now. So,
And that's a lot of detail. I appreciate that. Thank you for explaining that about the storm damage. So, but there are some Hudson residents that are going to soon find out that we're planning to replace this segment they don't know yet. Is that correct? On the sidewalks?
So they'll be finding that out probably in about a week from now.
Okay, and then they'll get a chance to speak in public and find out what that's going to cost them.
Yes. So what we do is, while this project is out to bid, hopefully if everything gets approved and that kind of thing, The bids will come back, sometime in July, early July, and then we'll use those numbers to calculate what people's actual assessment amounts are. So we're not just guesstimating as to, what that would be. So by the time July 18th rolls around, we actually know exactly what this is going to cost for everybody rather than, estimating and then having to revise it later. It's just kind of a lot of paperwork to have to do multiple steps. So
Thank you for explaining that. Then, yes, we welcome
I'm sorry.
our residents.
Can I
Oh, do you
ask
have
one
a-
quick
yes,
question?
please, yeah.
Sorry about that.
No, please.
So I know I could probably Google this, but I was hoping to hear from you guys. What is mud jacking? What is the benefit?
Oh,
What's
sure.
the cost on that?
okay, so
Just
mud jacking.
Quick. You can go quick.
Yeah, mud jacking is essentially you drill a little hole in the sidewalk panel itself, and then you put it's kind of like a slurry is what it's called. It's a concrete, really loose concrete mixer or something like that. And so what that does is it fills the voids under the sidewalk that, and then you push it up enough essentially to kind of push that panel back up so it's no longer like, at a tripping
gotcha.
hazard, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So just the pros and cons of that, it's usually less expensive, but just longevity purposes and, do we get a good final product with that and that kind of thing. So we want to try a little bit of it just
Yeah.
to see if.
Kind of a stopgap approach.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you.
Okay, please,
All right,
no,
yes.
thank you. You can
Thank
come
you.
to the podium if you'd like.
Jeff, wait a second.
And yes, your name and address, if you would, please.
Jeff Peterson, 2349 Hillcrest Drive. I'm the treasurer of our Carmichael Ridge HOA.
Okay.
And I think I've met a few of you guys over time, and Joy tonight. So a couple things. We did some digging. Some of the people that were planning on being here are not here. But first of all, during the plan, first I'll ask, do we have any money of MI homes left? Has that all been turned over? It was the escrowed money from MI Homes for our development?
That I don't know. That'd be a Mike Johnson question.
Okay.
The community development
I
director.
think that it probably has, because I questioned him about something else recently. I think that the only part that was held in escrow was for a certain project, and once that part was completed, but we can double check with Mike on it, the community development director.
Because first of all, I'll just talk about the money here that, we don't have access to that kind of money, the $20,000. We don't, MI Homes didn't leave us money we paid for our monument over by the fire station. We're going to be paying for, we have electric at neither one of our monuments. We paid for signs, that was $6,000. We don't have the funds for that. Our HOA is about half the size of Stone Pine. We're 144 homes. And I noticed one of the people did some digging in. When the Stone Pine project was completed in 2017, when our roads were being finished, the curb cuts and the sidewalk from the cul-de-sacs, so no sidewalk, from an end of a cul-de-sac over across the street to a sidewalk or path, were put in at that time with a 90-10 ratio, though Stone Pine only paid 10%. I get it, that was 5 years ago, things have changed, but still, I don't know, the board hasn't approved any funds for this. This is something, we'd be looking, obviously, to the city for some help on this. Maybe down the road, maybe it's not this year, but next year, One other, can I approach one of you guys, Dean? Can I just show you something real quick on my
Sure.
phone?
Yeah.
I meant to print this out, and I didn't, but this is the latest curb cut that we just finished at Annabelle Way and Ward. And I'm wondering, is that the kind of curb cut we'd be paying $7,000 for? It's just asphalt down to the street.
Oh, no. So it would be concrete.
So why
Yeah.
doesn't that have concrete and there's no handicap pebbles?
So,
It,
if I could quickly answer that.
I'll
So,
take a look at that. I'll
yeah,
come back.
okay. So that ramp was actually not supposed to be put in until the road got punched through. So we had designed like the curb to be cut out for a future project
Okay.
over there. So we actually, that wasn't even supposed to be paved down to the curb there. So it would be added later, yeah.
I kind of thought that, but
Yeah.
still, that was just done. So I guess, what I'm thinking is, as our, the treasurer, is that we just, we don't, that would be over 10% of our annual dues. So we'd have to have a special vote, even if we were considering putting it to the residents to get that kind of money. So we'd really looking for the city for financial help on that. And, if that's a year or so down the road, maybe that works better. I don't know. So, any questions?
I guess I have a quick question, so the city hasn't identified this as a need on their own. Basically, the homeowners association desires these curb cuts and ramps?
Yes, because across from those 3 cul-de-sacs are villas, which one, they're slab on grade. They're made, they're basically were designed for maybe retired folks.
Sure, yep.
Some have walkers, wheelchairs, and so forth.
Okay.
Thank you.
And what's interesting is when I drive Grandview, that's exactly what I see. It's basically a made-up crosswalk coming out of a cul-de-sac street and crossing over to a path. So I don't think it's...
So I guess that's my question is, obviously these curb cuts, ramps exist throughout the city. Like, at what point do those usually get designated by the city, not homeowners requesting it? Is this common, the timing of it? I don't know if my question makes sense, but like, again, you in your surveys over the years, you haven't identified that as a need for the city to put on its project list.
Yeah, so there's probably a number of things I can say about that. So I first want to say that I can understand the desire of the homeowners association to access that path in a number of spaces where it doesn't currently exist. I can completely understand that. Because right now, essentially, if you're trying to access the path from any one of those 3 cul-de-sacs, you have to, if you're able-bodied, go across the curb, go through the boulevard, get onto the path. And
right.
You can imagine in the wintertime that's even more challenging, and particularly for anybody who's not able-bodied. So I can completely understand the request and the desire for having that. Mike and I were both not here at the time that the Grandview Drive project happened. So there's a little bit of not exactly sure how all of that shook out, with discussions or, did the neighborhood request this, or is this a city, desire, that kind of thing. The 90-10 ratio that you kind of mentioned, I don't know if I think that's the entire project. I don't know if that was like specific components of it. If it kind of like all together was about 90-10 is what I understand anyway. So I guess where I'm coming from is that, I would love to see, more curb ramps to be able to access that trail. It's just not something, we've got all sorts of various things that we're trying to, improve in town. And so that would be, one on the list of, many things that we get to. And also, I'll say, go back to the Grandview example. Those ramps were put in as a part of a larger project. So that was, a repaving, and they redid most, if not all, the curbs along Grandview Drive. So it was a much bigger undertaking than what we're talking about with the sidewalk project here tonight. There's usually a lot more economies of scale when you have something that's that large versus a smaller thing. So that could have gone into how the assessments ended up being 10% rather than more because of how that math shook out too. So I'm kind of spitballing a little bit because, like I said, I wasn't here in 2017.
I think
but
the plan was originally drawn by M&I's engineer, I believe. Their professional engineer would have drawn the plan, and they didn't put them in for whatever reason.
The city would have approved it.
Yes, there was a process. There certainly were people with eyes on it. The hard part is, right, how do we assess and deal with those changes? It's difficult, and, there are hard issues that we have to face with only so much money. As you can see, we have $50,000 total to do matching and repair of unsafe ones. So that is very challenging because we want to make things safe and accessible throughout town as much as we can. In some parts of my district, there's many, like dozens of school children that walk to AP Rock with no sidewalk at all. And I do know there are wheelchair-bound people in that neighborhood also. So that's the hard part. We are in a tough spot there, and we appreciate your attention to detail and wanting to advocate for people in your neighborhood, in your development. How to move forward is that challenge. One thing I don't know if you know that we are able to spread out. If you did decide to have them put in with the full assessment, you're able to spread it out for quite a few years, the payment.
Yeah.
But again, you have to consult your members. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
So when that's assessed, like a curb cut, is that just assessed against the property the curb cut is, or does it extend to the sidewalk that you're creating? You're creating that sidewalk from a cul-de-sac of homes to give them a walkway access to the other side of the street. How do you assess that?
Yeah, that's a great question. In this case, so the entire, pedestrian ramp is the cost that's being assessed. So it's not just the curb, but it's the curb, the additional sidewalk to get to the trail, any patching, needed for the trail if the elevation doesn't work out, that kind of thing. And so with this case, I believe the association owns the property on the east side of
Correct.
Hillcrest in all three of these locations. So the assessment would go to the association because they're the fronting property on that east side.
So it doesn't extend back to the homeowners?
It wouldn't, in this case, go to the homeowners that are on the cul-de-sac directly. Yep.
Okay.
Not how our special assessment policy is written at right now. Yep.
I think there's some others here that want to
Yeah.
make some comments. Thank you, appreciate
Yeah.
your time.
Oh. Thank you for the maps too, because that helps for those of us
Yeah.
that haven't been out there.
Hi,
Go ahead.
my name's Melody Wahlberg, and I live in Hinsdale, which is the one closest to Ward Avenue.
Thank you.
And for me, it's very personal. I have 3 young grandchildren, 4, 3, and 2, and trying to cross the street with a stroller, a bike, and a trike, and keep the kids up on the path is, I'm constantly looking for cars. So I just feel that for safety reasons, it's very important for our cul-de-sac since we are so far away from the mailboxes. And also my husband has been in a wheelchair since 1999. And for him to get the mail, there's a lot of traffic that goes up and down that road. And I know there's been other accidents where vehicles have hit wheelchairs, and I'm just very concerned every time he goes up to get the mail. So I would just like you to keep that in your mind also. Thank you.
Melody, could I ask you on this map, could you just tell us where those mailboxes are? Are they up at the edge of the blue line? Is that correct?
Yeah, they're on the yellow section.
Right there. So that's what you're saying, the residents of those,
Hinsdale, and then we go past 2 more circles before we get to
you
the
have to go up there
mailboxes.
on the other side of the street to get your mail. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for clarifying that.
Hi, I'm Cindy O'Brien. I'm on 1852 Hinsdale. And I moved into this community, I'm over 65, and I moved in because they have one-level homes, and I think that's who they marketed to. In our circle alone, probably, I think we counted 7 out of the 15 homes are 65 or older. And if you look at the map, the curb is different for the length of Hinsdale, or of Hillcrest. So the first half of Hillcrest is just that slanted curb, where you can just walk up. But then at the blue section, it turns into that 90 degree. So our 3 cul-de-sacs have to go up and over the curb. The north half of our community does not. And I moved here to age in place. I walk, I bike, and I hope that I stay mobile for a long time, but I may not. Melody experiences concerns for her family. My next door neighbor used walking sticks. I feel like the community just missed it. Somehow something got missed in creating this community, and as a brand-new community, I feel like we're obliged to create safe places from the start. So that's, I'm here to ask, just for your consideration and support on this issue.
Thank you.
I have a quick question on the map that, if we're all looking at the same map, the 3 red proposed ramps, is there a sidewalk that runs between connecting these 3 cul-de-sacs?
No.
Okay, all right. They're on the west side, okay.
The sidewalk is on,
East side, right?
Yeah, so we're talking about coming out of this cul-de-sac.
Okay.
Crossing over.
Crossing the road and then meeting the
the
ramp.
walking path is on this side of the road.
Okay. So am I just spitballing? That's your word. The idea is something might be better than nothing. If it's an expense thing, would there be any benefit of putting a ramp in instead of all 3? I mean, obviously convenience, but at least you get an accessible way to get there.
even if you look at the map, if there's one ramp, somebody's still walking down the road, and I'm not sure
Sure.
how that, what that's,
Okay.
I think
Just
if
wondering
we're
if that,
considering it, I mean.
yeah.
Sure.
But if I look at Melody's husband, if it happens to be on our street, that would be great. He can access it, but if it's on one of the other cul-de-sacs, her husband's in the wheelchair in the road again.
I would have to go down. Okay. Yep. That makes sense.
Hi, I'm Sandy Hertzberger. I live on Halston, which is the middle one of the 3. And, I totally support this when they've been bringing this up to us for years. And it just seems like there should have been a code or some kind of engineering thing that got missed when they put in that road. And I don't know if those are supposed to be there, these ramps, and it got missed in the planning stage. But this is a picture. I'll just walk around real quick. This is the brand new road on Annabelle. They just put this road in, and they put 2 of these in. Right now, there's no businesses there except that senior center, but there's a path, and lo and behold, there's a cutout. So to me, it seems like, were they supposed to be there? Is there some code that said they were supposed to be? It doesn't sound like it, but I just saw this and went, it seems like there should have been some on our blocks too. I have a list of 14 people from those 3 cul-de-sacs who are in support of that. I don't know if anybody's collecting any data or anything for
Be glad
these.
to. Thanks, Sandy. Would you agree that most of your HOA is quite well serviced by curb ramps? That's part of it, is you felt this area wasn't, but the rest of it.
We have a lot of driveways.
Okay.
But that stretch has no homes on it, so there's no driveways.
Right,
So
but the other
everybody else-
sidewalks, like if you walk down Hillcrest and cross, is it Sherwood Place? If you walk across there, is there a
Well, there's
curb
not a
ramp?
path there, but if you're coming up Sherwood to
Okay.
Hillcrest.
Pass on the other
there's a
side.
driveway right
Thank
there.
you. Pass on the other side.
The only
Okay.
place there is no homes that actually face the street.
Okay.
Is that
Thank you.
area, so. Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else that would like to speak tonight? Thank you for coming, and I know you've given a lot of thought. What are we looking for tonight? We definitely need, it sounds like we need to continue the communication with this group, but I don't want to hold up other sidewalk work that we do need to get going this summer unless, do you have comments any further for members here tonight?
I agree with you that it's almost like we're trying to cram this into kind of an existing rolling system that we've been working on.
Okay.
Would,
Like your suggestion, at least get some, if not right now, but keep this on the to-do list or can you add it to our want list, which, as you say, is quite lengthy. And again, the only other, I think, comment I'll say is it was brought up, did we miss a code or did the city miss something? I don't know. None of us were sitting here at that time, but that is something we should look into if there's if it's black and white that, X amount of curb cuts per X amount of whatever.
I
That would
I
help.
can probably speak to that a little bit anyway.
I have some comments on that too.
It's clear as mud, we'll put it that way. So there's something called the Americans with Disabilities Act, which I'm probably sure you've heard the acronym ADA before. So that law has been in place for about 30 years now, and that essentially governs any facility that currently exists has to meet certain standards, and usually that includes like certain slopes and making sure that any facility that does exist doesn't have barriers in people actually using it, if that makes sense. Where it gets muddy is it doesn't, it says that you need to have accessible ramps anywhere that say in this case the path would cross a public street. So that's why you see those pedestrian ramps at Highland Circle and at Ward Avenue. It does not require ramps at every intersection if there isn't another like sidewalk that's like, say if each of these cul-de-sacs had a sidewalk that was supposed to be crossing to this path, then there would need to be a compliant pedestrian ramps at those intersections. But because there are no sidewalks that are crossing the street there, then that's where ADA gets fuzzy and it doesn't actually say you have to do this. However, it is kind of a best practice because of issues that we're dealing with tonight. And that's one reason why, the picture of Ward Avenue that we just constructed, that's a really long stretch through there. And if, we're trying to plan for someday when, the sites do develop up there, those curb cuts we put in so that we could have crossings every so often in case somebody's trying to walk to any of those businesses whenever they do materialize up there, and wouldn't have to, kind of come and dig up the street again or, minimize the amount of extra work we'd have to do in the future, that kind of thing. So that was more on us current staff trying to think ahead as to what would make the most sense as we're doing this project. And in this case, that didn't happen with 2016 or whenever it was that this development was actually built. And so it's kind of more of a best practices thing than it is a technical requirement thing, if that makes sense. More or less.
Did the developer, have you guys gone back to the developer and said you guys missed something, or? I mean, legally, I don't know how you could do that, but.
Well, we had them out many times, their property vice president. Took notes and talked to him.
Not interested. He's done. Okay.
They moved on. Yeah, they moved on.
Okay, they closed it and moved on. Okay.
Yep.
Mike and Dean, just wondering if you've seen anything like this before, if you have any advice or counsel for us as we're hearing these comments?
Yeah, I'll make a couple comments. So first and foremost, kind of what Dean alluded to is, since Dean has been here, myself, Mike Johnson, if you look at a lot of our newer developments, we are requiring the developer to put in pedestrian accommodations, off-street trails, sidewalks, so on and so forth, so that we don't run into this problem in the future. 'Cause previously, whether it's city staff or the city engineer at the time that we consulted with, were more traffic centered in their development and plans, and then this is what we're running into, right? So we are trying our best to do the accommodation now so we don't run into this in the future. All right, that's number one. Number two, when it comes to sidewalk assessments, since my time here, it's been almost 4 years, is we run into a lot of issues with people requesting sidewalks, whether it's near schools, pedestrian ramps, so on and so forth. And when I tell them that the assessment policy is 100% of new sidewalk is assessed to the adjoining property, they're like, can't afford it, don't want it, so on and so forth. And I know between Dean and I at staff, we have floated the idea of bringing a proposal forward to amend that assessment policy so that the city would cover that full cost of installation to make it easier on residents around schools, situations like this where the adjoining property isn't having to foot that initial bill. It would make things easier in the long run, I think, and I think we would see a lot more progress in our network system in the future if we were to bring something forward like that. But that's going to take some time to do and a lot of discussion based on that.
If we did something like that, would that involve bonding then, or how would that?
What we would do is if we were to get rid of the sidewalk assessment, what I would recommend then is we would increase our sidewalk program funding each year. Instead of, 50,000, maybe we up it up to 100,000, so on and so forth, to cover that lost revenue from the assessment. So something to consider.
And
But if we did that, would we take it in order of the spots that are the least safe? That's where we would start. So even if we started that, perhaps we have some that are less safe than
What
even this.
I would probably do is I would sprinkle in, I would still continue to replace those sidewalks that are deemed high hazard, which are like 2-inch, inch and a half. And we have like, when we did our sidewalk assessment, there's like 400 spots throughout the community that have this hazard. And then we go down the next one where it's like an inch deflection. And then the lowest ones are like a half-inch deflection. So we would continue to prioritize those spots, but maybe we can set aside, whether it's $20,000 to do a stretch of a block this year, and then we do a block next year. At least I start kind of picking away. And if we get requests like this, maybe we do one ramp this year, another ramp next year, so on and so forth. So something to think about, but I don't want to deter from getting away from replacing those sidewalks that are hazardous, that are existing hazards, right? Because we have people that trip and fall, and then they call my office and they're suing the city because we're not taking care of our sidewalks. So we definitely want to take care of those.
All your statements keep leading me to another question, so I'm sorry to keep, but what we could do, an option for us to consider this evening, is to approve what's on tap for tonight, and then to ask for a future agenda for maybe perhaps for you to bring back an idea on what you were just talking about. Would that be a starting point anyways?
It'd be a starting point. It'd be a talking point for discussion, absolutely.
Okay.
And would that be smart to do perhaps later this summer so that we can be budgeting, if the council chooses to adopt that? The fall budget is when
Yeah.
we determine what happens next year.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Did you have anything more to add?
Was that your motion?
Thank you.
I'm done with my questions
Okay.
on this.
Good question.
Do you have another question?
No, I'm done on this, on
it's
this,
good.
on this topic, I'm
I was
done.
just going to add to what Mike was saying. So, so right now we have $50,000 in ICIP that we're contributing to this project essentially. So assuming we use that for all sidewalk replacement stuff, then that means like we're getting another $50,000 from the adjoining property owners for the entire project, if that makes sense. So if we did do away with special assessments, especially the 50-50 stuff, what Mike was saying, increasing the budget to $100,000, so essentially land us with pretty much the same scope of project we have right now, just all funded by the city instead of, the special assessments. If we wanted to do more than what we're doing right now, then it would have to be over $100,000. You have to,
Raise, right?
we'd be, 150 or, whatever we
To
end
do
up
more
with.
than we're doing.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yep.
And we've been talking only about sidewalks, but this does include curb replacement as
Yes.
well,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
if
Same
the
program.
curb is deteriorating over time in front of my home,
Yep.
even if I don't care about it deteriorating, the city will determine when it needs to be replaced and improved, and then that.
Yeah, and
guys put
with
it on the
with the
list.
curb replacement stuff, and Mike can chime in here too, is that we generally have not done too much with curb replacement in the sense of just general deterioration, except for outside, if we do a street reconstruction project, obviously we're doing it then. But if, just spot curb stuff, we generally have not focused on that so much, except in very specific cases, like for example, this in front of the old Goodwill, where there isn't curb right now, but there's really no drainage in that area to, convey that water to where it's supposed to go. That can be a safety problem in the wintertime with ice and that kind of thing. If it's just, a little section of curb that's right in front of somebody's house or whatever, essentially that's not something we're targeting with this unless it's an obvious safety problem, like it's collecting water and water's sitting there and it's going to turn into ice in the wintertime and that kind of thing. So we've been, I guess, probably more going towards the sidewalk portion of the sidewalk and curb projects, just because it's used, by the traveling public more directly, I guess, than the curb stuff. More safety related,
Sure,
yeah.
that makes sense.
Exactly.
Any more comments, or do you care to move towards a decision? Oh, sure, go ahead, yes.
I'm not sure if this is brought up or not, but those last three circles, an awful lot of the homes, probably 90% or more, are all one level, which brought in the older community.
Yes.
And I think that A lot of those have grandkids, I know, so I'm not the only one with that issue.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you, Melody. And Dean and I did meet with Joe Dardas, the president of your HOA, out on the property area to see that. And he explained some of that, the features there, and I can see why it drew people who might need that accessibility to be more readily available. And I hope you feel like we're hearing and listening to your problem, and we want to move forward to try and address it. And one of you had mentioned, about coming to one of your meetings. I'd certainly be glad to, because I represent your neighborhood, as you know. So I'd be glad to come to one of your HOA meetings at some point. So anyway, I'd entertain a motion if anyone is ready for that.
I'm happy to make a motion. I do want the folks that are here tonight to know that I will add for future agenda items for us to review, to direct city council or city employees to look at our special assessments related to curbs and gutter. So I'll direct that as a future agenda item, but you won't hear it in the motion. Okay. So I'll make the motion that we approve the sidewalk and curb project as presented.
A second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the issue sheet for the sidewalk and curb project 2022. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that is passed. And again, we will continue to work on addressing your concerns. So thank you very much for being here. Next item under new business is also regarding some of the property in your neighborhood. So I think, Mike, you're going to cover that with discussing the median at Hillcrest.
Yep.
Hillcrest Drive.
Yep. So kind of in adjacent to the Carmichael Ridge development, there's a median in between the Culver's property and the Holiday Inn Hotel. Just to the east of the roundabout, we had met earlier this spring on a very, very cold day to discuss maintenance responsibilities of this median. Previously, the Carmichael Ridge HOA has been maintaining this stretch, including mowing it, irrigating it, so on and so forth. But there's nothing in the developer's agreement or any type of maintenance agreement that was developed when this went in. So they don't have to maintain this. There's nothing saying that they do. They were doing it just as a way to beautify their space as they're coming into their development, so on and so forth. So I did email Joe and ask them kind of where we settled on after our meeting there this spring, and he indicated that the HOA has no interest in maintaining this anymore. They will maintain the roundabout, and therefore the city needs to maintain this moving forward. So seeing that, I included some pictures in the packet, and the thistles were about 2 feet high. There's hardly any grass left. The city, we're not going to irrigate it. And so what I'm suggesting is, removing the trees and just replacing that median with some colored concrete, just to, lessen the maintenance in the future for our staff. So that's what I'm here for tonight, to just move that forward. So I did some rough numbers. It's about 27 to 30 yards of concrete. Probably costs approximately $4,000 to $5,000 to do this work. So staff would transplant the trees into a nearby park, probably go up to Grandview Park, around the new picnic shelter, and then we would work on replacing that median grass or dirt infill with some type of colored concrete.
Thank you. Any questions about that?
And the city would pay for moving the trees and all the cement?
Yep.
Okay, and is that being new guy, is that sort of par for the course? Someone says we don't want to maintain this, now it's on you?
This
sounds like a slippery slope.
This development is unique in that things were not spelled out. So now we do maintenance agreements. So if there's an association or development that wants to put in some type of median or something like that, we make sure that there is a maintenance agreement that spells out HOA is responsible for this. This one, nowhere to be found. So the median was put in. It's a public median because there's no document saying otherwise. So
Gotcha. So we own it basically anyway.
no.
It's not deeded to the HOA. Could
Yeah.
you comment on the one that's in the middle of the roundabout? that's nicely landscaped and is that also just public right of way?
Do you have the answer to that one? No, I don't think it is, to be honest with you.
We talked about that, is that whole corner there, and you have to understand the Culver's corner that's not being maintained by MI, which still owns it.
Yep.
I understand now there's a complaint, or it's gone to the department to get that mowed. You know, the weeds are this high now.
No mow June.
But that whole area was outlot whatever number. And MI Homes left town and never got a quitclaim deed signed with Culver's to take over that property. And so we didn't realize that we were irrigating it for a couple of years, really. And then we found out, oh yeah, they're mowing it, we're irrigating it, we're mowing it, we're putting fertilizer and paying for all of that, and it's not deeded to us. Now, we want the roundabout, and we did agree to that. We'll keep that irrigated. We paid to have the irrigation fixed after the construction of Ward.
Yep.
But that median is, I feel bad that Culver's and the hotel couldn't have,
Yeah, no, yeah.
That's my last comment.
Yep.
Thanks.
And I know you had said in there that this would be from the general expense fund, or
Yeah.
the general, so there is sufficient funds to cover that?
We'll have to move money around and not probably do some other concrete work within the city. So,
And thank you for addressing the tree issue. I appreciate that.
welcome. Yeah, we're not gonna go and just cut it.
I was going to ask, so you beat me to it, so thank you.
I know we have some city staff that do maintain the gardens in town, down at Lakefront Park, Williams, et cetera. They're kind of tapped out on what they can handle as far as keeping things up
Yeah.
in terms of their
Oh,
workload.
yeah.
it's a
Nancy
question, I
Faust.
guess.
Yeah, it is. I mean, she does a lot of different gardens throughout town. Corky's Pier, like you said, Lakefront Park.
Is it just Nancy Folks that's doing it, or do
Yeah.
you have another? Okay,
Yep.
yeah, she's busy.
Yep, she is.
Okay.
She is. Yep.
She does great work, but yes, to add another area for upkeep to her list isn't
It's
realistic.
it's one of those things where if you look at the overhead, if we want to keep some grass in there, the western half, how it's kind of split in half. The western half is a little wider than the eastern half. The eastern half is going to be darn near impossible to go grass on without irrigation, right? Just because it's only like a 5-foot wide strip. So that for sure we should concrete. If the Public Works Committee wants to keep some green space in there, I'd be open to doing that western half. But from the other photos, it's like, I don't know how well grass is gonna grow in there without irrigation too.
Right.
Which leads me to think of like all the medians on Carmichael, and they're established, and it's like, how did those get established to begin with, without irrigation? And they look good, but this year is just, I don't know what it is about the dirt that was used or something, but as soon as they stopped irrigating it, it turned into Weed City.
Weed.
Would there be any way of saving the trees and putting something else down that, lawn? I think we talked about that.
If we do rock, the only thing I'm concerned about is the plows just kicking it out all over the place in the wintertime. That'd be my concern with that. That's why I thought a colored concrete would it's better than, at least it gives us some type of texture to the eye.
Right.
So,
Do you need a motion? I didn't see a recommendation on action.
I mean, if you're in agreement with doing that, I just take a motion to direct staff to, remove the trees and pour concrete in place.
I can't make that one.
Transplant the trees.
Is that your recommendation?
Yeah.
I'll make the motion. Actually, before the motion, I have a quick question. So the homeowners association said we don't want to irrigate it, we don't want to take care of it. Do we need any kind of legal documents saying now it's all the cities? For some of the homeowners to come back and say, hey, what happened to all our trees?
No, I'm not, I can,
That's
Never ours.
it was
never
theirs
yours,
to begin with.
okay.
Yeah.
It's solely within the city right of way, so
Okay.
unless something says otherwise, it's
Okay.
mostly our.
It's a city's.
it's a
Well, and I
city's
think,
thing.
like you said, let's do this once and then it's done, whatever. So I'll make a motion to reconstruct, or direct the city to reconstruct Hillcrest Drive median with transplanting the trees as they deem necessary and cementing.
I can second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we adopt the staff recommendation regarding Hillcrest Drive median. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, that'll move forward. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for coming. Okay, issue item 5C, discussing and possible action to reallocate $13,750 from Hanley and Center traffic signal upgrades to repave a portion of O'Neill Road.
Yep, so I had received a number of phone calls earlier this spring regarding a street condition on O'Neill at the intersection of Hanley. In the issue sheet, I had put some photos kind of showing the area. It's about a 150-foot stretch. 15 feet wide is that travel lane as you approach the stop sign. What's happening is over the years, as the heavy truck traffic, semis and so on and so forth are coming up to that stop sign, they're hammering the brakes and basically it's broken apart the pavement. Now, I mean, it's bad. We went out there and spray patched it just to get it by, but I had a guy call me saying he had to take his car to the repair shop to get an axle fixed and so on and so forth. So my idea, and kind of floated it by Dean, was to, because we had gotten that HISIP grant for the traffic signals, the, what's the acronym?
Huh? For what was HSIP?
Yeah, it was HISIP.
Highway Safety Improvement Program.
Thank you. So we had originally allocated $75,000 for the intersections of Center and Carmichael and Hanley and Carmichael to improve the traffic signals. We got the grant. So now the total project cost for the city on those two traffic signals is roughly $30,000. So we have $45,000 remaining in that CIP line item. So I'm looking to reallocate, take, $14,000. I got a quote from Monarch to come in and repave that area. So take $15,000 and reallocate that to the O'Neill Road and basically repave that 150 by 15-foot stretch of road as you approach the stop sign.
And you don't have to do anything, because that's not really touching the grant money at all, so you don't have to do anything with.
Correct,
Okay.
yeah. And so city staff would perform all the removals. We would cut out the asphalt. We would prep the base. Basically, we're hiring Monarch to come and put down some fresh asphalt for that stretch.
I make the motion that we approve the reallocation of $13,750 from the Center Hanley traffic signal upgrades to the O'Neill Road paving project.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded that we adopt the staff recommendation for item 5C regarding the repavement of O'Neill Road. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. Okay, and then the final item under new business is discussion possible action regarding the 2022 alley repaving project.
All right, so we have identified some funding for a couple alley repaving projects from 2022, and also we have some leftover money from the 2021 CIP, which we did not do last year. And so with those two funding sources together, we've identified a few alleys that need some help. We have a number of alleys in town that need a lot of help. So this is, again, trying to check some things off the list, but we have a long list in this case. And so the two alleys that are on the list for this year that we're proposing to work on are the ones that are between 3rd, 4th River and St. Croix, which is abutting the St. Pat's Church parking lot. And then the alley just south of that between 3rd, 4th, St. Croix and Oak. And that, so the St. Pat's alley, the north side does not have an apron onto River Street. And so that we would add with this project. The south side of that alley has a very steep slope, which we would look to reduce a little bit with the project. So both of those aprons would be replaced. On the alley to the south, the alley on the St. Croix Street side is literally abutting two driveways, so we really can't change the grade on that apron. And then on the other side is in good shape. So those two aprons thankfully don't have to be replaced. And then, so because oil prices are really high, construction prices in general are really high, we anticipate that probably the price of these alleys are going to be a lot higher than past projects have shown us. And indeed, we've reached out to Monarch in the past to say, like, okay, roughly, not going to hold you to it, but right now, kind of what are you seeing for price per ton for asphalt? And for small projects like these alley projects, it's upwards of $120 a ton, which is like a lot for perspective. Just a few years ago, we were talking about prices per ton for a project like this would be in the 60s per ton, something like that.
So are you saying they won't get a firm bid right now yet?
Well, we haven't put this out to bid.
Okay.
So we just wanted to kind of get there, like, just so that we're not overshooting for what we can do with our money. We're just like, okay, yeah, we know that we're not officially out to bid. We just want to kind of get the sense of where things are at right now, and with the oil prices again, and with uncertainty in general in our construction industry. That's kind of what they suggested anyways, what we might see for this project. If we did have any money remaining following these two alleys, depending on how much is remaining, we could choose to add another alley if that makes sense, or probably more likely we would use the money for larger areas of pavement patching. So one of the, Mike mentioned the O'Neill one, so stuff like that where it's like kind of larger, not just fill a pothole, but kind of some larger spots that we cut out and actually replace with a good patch. I know Mike had mentioned one spot would be under the railroad bridge at Bear Drive. There's some significant kind of holes coming off of the railroad bridge there. So that'd be an example of what we do.
Is this a mill and overlay then, or what's the approach?
So essentially it would be pulling out the existing pavement
and
paving it again.
Okay.
It's not a complete reconstruction. If for these alleys, we don't really know what it's built on top of, and if I had to guess, it's probably just built on top of almost black dirt.
Right.
So we're just essentially replacing the pavement right now, so it's not a full reconstruction, not changing the grades too significantly, that kind of thing. So, yeah. So I have budgeted in there that would be 3 inches of pavement, I believe. I'm not even sure there's 3 inches of pavement on those alleys right now, but that's what I'm operating under anyway. So.
And what's the lifespan then when you do that typically? I know it's a lot of wear, a lot of variables, but generally speaking.
So alleys, it's going to probably depend on what actually is under the alleys in a lot of cases, but 15 to 20 years, hopefully, something like that. Thankfully, alleys aren't heavily traveled, but there are garbage trucks and stuff that go down the alleys, so that does kind of beat them up a little bit.
And I wanted to ask you to comment on the special assessments. That was recently changed by a vote of the city council.
Yes. Yep. So special assessments for alley projects were removed a couple of years ago, so we don't have to go through that process with this project.
I make the motion that we approve the alley project as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, moved and seconded that we'll move forward with 2022 alley repaving project. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, thank you. We do have an item under old business also, which I guess, Dean, you're going to have that one too, a discussion about the 3rd Street Laurel Avenue project.
Yeah, so I just wanted to kind of update the committee on some movement with the project. So you were all in attendance at that June 1st meeting, so thank you for coming. I think you would agree it was well attended, and there was some good discussion as to the project and that kind of thing. I wanted to specifically bring up one topic of conversation that the community members, at least that were at the meeting, were very interested in pursuing. And that was the idea of changing 3rd Street, Laurel Avenue from what's now a two-way street, just regular street, to either a one-way street. We didn't specify exactly which direction, but a one-way street of some sort, or to even just kind of disconnect it, so to speak, to not create a not-through street anymore, that kind of thing. And a couple of the reasons, essentially, that I gathered kind of underlying that conversation was some safety issues with people speeding through the area. It is not a wonderful location for a road. It's very tight, obviously, with bluffs and curves and that kind of thing. I know some people had mentioned that their cars have been hit by cars driving recklessly, or if you're on the hill, somebody sliding down the hill or that kind of thing. And then also just that there's no room for pedestrian and bicycle traffic up around the bluff area in particular. So not having a road or having a much narrower road only going in one direction would open up some space for potentially having some sort of pedestrian and bicycle connection through the bluff area. So as staff after the meeting, we discussed between ourselves, and we had conversations with city council members and that kind of thing, as to kind of do some more research. I wanted to make sure that everybody knew that they were heard. Don't want to just say yes this or no that, just out of hand, that kind of thing. But we did some more research just to kind of critically think about that connection through there and what would make the most sense. So we had identified a number of significant concerns with the proposed changes, so to speak, either to a one-way or a cul-de-sac. I'll just kind of read off what we had in the issue sheet here. Mm-hmm. So completely severing the roadway link. So right now there's about 2,000 vehicles per day that use that roadway link, which is not insignificant. So that would divert those people somewhere else. That somewhere else could be a number of different locations, and one particular concerning somewhere else would be diverting people to that one-way portion of Walnut Street going down the hill. As I'm sure many of you are well aware, that portion of Walnut Street is also in very bad condition and very steep and not a great street. And then also, some more people could be using 7th Street, some others could have been diverted to Cooley Road, that kind of thing. We also have a lot of traffic that already uses Cooley Road, so that could present some issues with adding more traffic to that road as well. If it was a one-way alternative, the impact would be less because one direction would still be in operation, so the other direction would get diverted somewhere else, but it would be the same concern, just in a lesser amount. Public safety agencies, so your police, your fire department, EMS, that kind of thing, are concerned that the closure of the roadway link or conversion of a one-way to a one-way would harm service between the top and bottom of the hill areas. So obviously we don't have the fire department down here anymore, but they're up on top of the hill, up on Ward Avenue, and they have to service, downtown. And also our police department currently is in this downtown area, and to get up to the top of the hill to service a call in whatever fashion that is, without this 3rd Street link through here, they would be diverted, and time is important in those kind of situations. Again, EMS, that one in particular, if there is somebody they're trying to travel to get to a emergency, any seconds are crucial, that kind of thing for EMS. Closure of the roadway link would require a cul-de-sac to be built to allow for turning around of plow trucks, emergency vehicles, and just anybody else who needs to turn around up there. There isn't sufficient right-of-way to construct a cul-de-sac anywhere along 3rd Street. We have the water building up there, but we don't own enough property next to the water building to build an entire cul-de-sac. Otherwise, everything else is private property, and so we would have to purchase right-of-way and also construct a cul-de-sac. That would be a significant expense as well. Conversion to a one-way, would mean a significant loop for anyone living along 3rd Street to go the opposite direction of the one-way. So, for instance, if the one-way is going up the hill, anybody in the houses that are down here by Walnut Street, if they followed the law and went the correct direction on the one-way. They have to go up the hill, around, and snake around and come back down Walnut Street as the shortest distance to get to this intersection right here. And that's almost exactly a mile out of the way, essentially, for them. It's lesser, as you go up the hill, the distance is less, but given human nature, I would expect that there would be a significant amount of people that would be probably traveling the wrong way on a one-way, and that causes its own problems. People are inconvenienced. They try to find the shortest route possible, and if somebody's coming the wrong way down a one-way, you're asking for a head-on crash, and that is not good, especially considering the grade on the hill, too. So kind of with all those things together, like those are a lot of the drawbacks. Do we see a big benefit, to doing something like that? We just didn't see, at least the overall network, of city streets and all the things that we have to look at in the city of Hudson. We didn't see the benefit to outweigh all those significant drawbacks when we critically looked at it. So we recommend proceeding with the original plan to reconstruct that section of 3rd Street along the bluff area to a two-way street as it is today. So if the committee concurs with that opinion, we don't need any action tonight because that is kind of the original direction that this project was going. But it was wanted to at least provide that the general public to know that we did, seriously consider the issues involved in that conversation, and this is what we're recommending to move forward with. Any questions, concerns, discussion?
So two of the other issues that I heard that night or thoughts that were floated around were speed humps or throughout to kind of help slow down, because we do know the data supports that we do have speeding on that street. And is there room to put additional signage about it not being, caution? And I'm just wondering if that's something we could do to help ease some of the concerns that the residents who live on that street experience.
Yeah. So I'll take the easy one first, the signage.
Okay.
We can certainly add signage with this project. That would be not a problem at all. So we would be looking to upgrade the signage around that area anyway, so adding some more clear signage that this is not a good route would be very easy to do. The speed humps, maybe I'll let Mike to say some of the concerns he has with permanent speed humps, but it could be a possibility to look at, but I want to give him the opportunity to say his thoughts about it.
I bet plowing is one of them. Okay.
Yeah, it's the biggest one. Like I was explaining to Dean, and Joy had brought this up too, is our main units, when the guys go out and plow, they typically won't put on their front plow, just because we have the underbody scrapers with the rear wings, and so the underbody scrapers are fixed. They don't float, so we can put pressure down on the street and scrape off the snow and the hard pack, so on and so forth. If we were to come to those speed humps, and it's not just this road. I mean, we hear a lot about residents in the community wanting speed humps and speed humps here and speed humps there. It's like we already get calls saying that we take long to plow our streets, and now we're having to slow down or put on our front plow, which takes more time. So it's something to consider. Obviously, anything is doable, but there's repercussions from those decisions, and so something to think about.
Yeah, I'll chime in with the engineering perspective, and we have those temporary speed humps up on Chestnut, and we have collected some after data from after we installed those temporary ones, and it did show the average speeds were reduced by 8 miles per hour up on Chestnut, and the speediest speeders were significantly reduced up there. So effective-wise, it does seem to help to slow people down. It's essentially how to design them in a way that minimizes the the impact to the plowing operations or the plow trucks themselves, that kind of thing, that would be important if we did pursue that, a permanent style thing up there. So one thing that if we did pursue that, permanent speed humps are generally a lot more gradual and large than the ones that you see up on Chestnut Drive right now. And that, I think a lot of that has to do with the maintainability of them, to make sure that they're not, if a plow truck is going up and over them, that they have the best chance of smoothly doing that.
Yeah, the transitions.
And also, emergency vehicles and stuff, so they're not, if they're,
Not catapult.
And I would
you're not, taking off the speed humps, if that makes sense.
I'd be a little
So-
leery of putting speed humps on 3rd Street Hill to begin with, and this is just not even affecting the plowing, but some people might take it as a challenge to come down that hill quickly.
Oh.
I mean, and I don't want, it's one thing to put speed humps on a flat street, which we have on Chestnut. It's another to put them on a hill that steep.
Yeah.
If people aren't familiar with it or not paying attention. So,
Yeah. So if we did put in speed humps, I would suggest making sure that we put them in location that they're easily visible to anybody who is, coming around those corners or whatnot, and they have time to react appropriately, slow down if they need to, that kind of thing. And rather than having them sail off into, some hazard that we don't want them to do so, that would be something we would really need to, especially in that, like Mike was saying, that circumstance we have up there. It's not an ideal place for things like that, just because you have lots of curves and lots of hills. So,
Do the placement of the temporary speed bumps degrade the surface of the road?
it's never good to drill into your road and create cavities that water can penetrate and freeze and pop, right?
Because I know there's a lot of requests coming before public safety right now about that. So just wanted your input, what you thought.
Yep.
One thing, you mentioned signage. I wonder if one of those lighted signs that flashes what your speed is as you're driving by would, catch people's eye. Usually you have a solar panel to power them and something like that. More safety issues. We definitely heard that loud and clear, and we appreciated having people come and share their concerns at that hearing. So.
yeah.
Yeah, I'll just echo what you guys said. I thought it was a great meeting to hear all the voices, and you could almost see the ideas take form as people were passing the ideas around. So the safety idea, just speed and also the shape of the road and all that. So yeah, I think finding ways to address that, more police presence, the here's your speed. Type thing. I think that, that answers the call to these concerned citizens. And I thought, what a neat idea, right? Make it all a walking path or a one-way. So maybe that's the start of an idea that could be in 5, 10, 20 years when cars aren't as prevalent or whatever. But kind of like what you and I first started talking about, that retaining wall needs to be built, and it needs to be rebuilt, I should say, quickly. Almost no matter what we decide on safety or lights or signs and things like that. So
It is itself a safety issue.
yeah, to me, I thought even if we do come up with a neat idea to change it up a little bit or add walking or whatever, I think we do need to proceed with this as is or as it was before. Not throw that idea away and move on, but keep it out there as how do we address the safety stuff. Also, maybe because that's one of the most unique streets or hills or whatever we probably have in the city. So neat idea, but I don't think now's the time to just say, let's jump on that right now. So, I think we should proceed with the master plan as it was.
Unless there's a motion to do otherwise, we'll just continue with what we've already approved. If that's-
As long as it's with the understanding that we're going to really beef up that signage, and I really appreciated your idea, Joy, about,
Sure.
that was a great idea.
Yeah, I think right now, the signing that is up there there could be more done there, I think, to highlight to people, like, Yeah, you can oversize those signs, like the regular signs. You can put them on both sides of the road. There's various things you can do to catch people's eye that like, oh, hey, like I really should slow down here because this isn't something I see everywhere. They got, not flashing, but like signs, big signs saying I should pay attention here, that kind of thing. That's why you don't like to overdo signs elsewhere, because in the places that you need them, in this case, then they're more effective.
Sign pollution is real.
Yes.
People don't take notice of it.
Correct.
Everywhere.
So many.
Interesting point. Okay. Then unless there's a motion, we'll move on. Do we have a project update on any current issues?
Well, Joy would talk to me about the grant application. Can I steal this?
You can.
Okay. So I gave this update to the Public Safety Committee last week, and thought this would be a good idea to talk about at this meeting tonight. We've talked numerous times about grant funding opportunities that are here and coming up and that kind of thing. So I'm going to give an update as to the ones that we've proceeded with and ones that we are looking forward to in the future. So the first group are the ones that were federal fiscal year 2022 grants. So we submitted for 11th Street, 17th Street, Laurel Avenue, Carmichael Road, and East Canyon, West Canyon for various projects. Some are more significant than others, but unfortunately, we weren't successful with any of them after much conversation with WSDOT beforehand, sounding very promising.
It's a bummer.
I found out, so we submitted, these projects, and there were only 3 others that were submitted in our population group in the state of Wisconsin, and all 3 of the other ones were selected. So, we're very disappointed. We'll say that on that. I'll speak offline with you if you want to know the nitty gritty with that. But so after we found out the wonderful news about that, we were kind of going back and forth with WSDOT. Okay, with this next round, how can we be potentially more successful with the projects we're submitting for? And, with that conversation, we narrowed our grant submissions to the ones that are located on the issue sheet. So resubmitting the 11th Street project, so that would be repaving and a sidewalk extension from Wisconsin to Cooley Road. 9th Street, a full reconstruction between St. Croix and Vine. Fillmore Oak 12th, kind of along the backside of the high school, reconstruction of that, and then O'Neill Harvey Enlow in the industrial park, as Mike alluded to the previous item. Pavement replacement and some surface reconstruction areas. So we submitted grant applications on June 3rd for those projects, so we'll hear back in August if we're selected for those. Hopefully we get at least one, because that would be extremely disappointing, but all that work and everything without getting any of it. Anyway, so that's those first two were, we deal with WSDOT on those. They're WSDOT's programs that funnel through federal funds, essentially. The next 2 are directly through the federal government, and I'm more optimistic about these, I think. So the first one in particular really excites me. So this one's called Safe Streets and Roads for All, as engineers love acronyms, SS4A, development of an action plan. And so what this would do is the federal government has a lot of money. This is a new program through the federal government. It's to assist communities in putting together what this is called this action plan. And what this action plan is essentially kind of a conglomeration of things like bike ped plan, complete streets type stuff, design guidelines for making sure that our streets, new or reconstruction, are being constructed in a way that's safe for all users. If we need to do some zoning changes to accommodate this, these things in this action plan being implemented, that kind of stuff. I believe that we can also to assist in putting together this action plan, we can also request money for purchasing things like additional temporary speed humps, delineators, that kind of thing, so we can do some more like pilot projects to see test out something before it becomes, concrete into the ground, if that makes sense. And so that action plan, if we were selected and put one together and got it done, once we get it done, that would also unlock phase 2 essentially of this federal grant program, which is the implementation portion of it, and that would fund actual projects being done to implement your action plan. So, if we had a street reconstruction or something that we know we have a lot of safety issues for all users being vehicles, but also pedestrians, bicyclists, trucks, all sorts of stuff, we would compete in that specific grant funding just with other communities that have this action plan together, which is not many in the nation. We it essentially shrinks our competition significantly so we can actually get things done with this action plan. So that kind of checks a lot of boxes of things that I'm really excited about, and also hopefully it all comes together so that we could actually do some implementation projects too.
So I'm sorry, the 11th Street Bridge.
Yes.
So the
Bridge.
This is so that was the last item, is that right?
Okay.
Yeah, the 11th Street was it's north of the bridge.
North of the
not
bridge.
the
Okay.
itself. Yep.
All right. So the bridge, Hagan Street, 11th Street, you're going for another grant, is that, if I understood correctly?
Yeah, so that's on the next one.
Okay, all
Yep,
right. Okay.
So I'll go into that. Connecting Communities Grant, this is also another new program through the federal infrastructure bill. And this is a grant that specifically targets projects that would eliminate or mitigate barriers between parts of the community. So in our case, I-94 when it was built was a very big barrier that separates the north half from the south half of our community. So we feel that enhancing one of the only 2 connections we have across I-94 would be a really good fit for at least ostensibly what we've learned about this grant program. And so we already have most, if not all, the information compiled, and since we already submitted for a grant for this project, so we feel that submitting for this grant would be not much effort for hopefully a lot of benefit. So so those 2 in particular I'm optimistic about.
I have to apologize to the
Yeah.
committee. I asked Dean to speak about this tonight, and I didn't get it on the agenda, so I do
Yeah.
apologize
That's
for
okay.
that, because I realized when I was watching public safety last week, they discussed that. So this issue sheet is attached to last week's public safety meeting,
Okay.
but would you email it
Yeah,
to all
I
of us,
certainly
please,
can.
too?
Yep.
Sorry you don't have the details in front of you. I wanted an update from him, and yes, it's unfortunate news, but I appreciate your optimism and your hard work. We'll keep trying.
Ever the optimist.
That's good. So anyway, we'll email that to everyone,
Yeah.
but the details of what he was going over are on the public safety meeting issue sheet last week. So,
Sorry, I forgot that wasn't in
Thank you.
front of you.
okay.
I'm reading it in front of me, but I don't
No,
know if it's
that's good.
sorry about that.
I was trying to keep it all straight with my,
Yeah.
I apologize. Okay, any other project updates? Mike, anything from you?
Hillcrest is open. That's good.
Yay.
Hillcrest and Carmichael intersection.
good.
Work continues on the Carmichael Bridge over I-94. The state did some lane shifting there on another section of the bridge, but that project is scheduled to go until August 26th, so late August. So we'll have to endure pretty much this whole summer of traffic
Yeah.
congestion in that area.
Okay.
They found when they pull open the panels that are covering up the bridge that there was a lot more work that needed to be done to maintain the bridge than what they anticipated. So that's why the project is extending later. Originally, the project was supposed to be done at the end of July, but it's looking about a month late. So
I'm sorry to hear that, but I'm glad they're taking care of safety issues, and it's good to know the time frame, because people do ask and ask us.
right.
Anything else?
And also, going back to that project too, we did talk with SDOT about tweaking the traffic signal timings up in that area, because we know there's been a lot of congestion, and I'm sure every one of us has gone through that multiple times. I haven't checked with them today, but as of last week, they were planning to make some changes to the traffic signal timings at the end of last week to hopefully make things move a little smoother up there. I don't know to what extent they've helped or whatnot, but I just want to let the committee know that that things are they're trying to tweak whatever they can to,
On Carmichael?
on Carmichael. Yep. So the 2 ramps and then Crestview signal as well.
What about when you go onto 11th Street Bridge? That's really gotten bad too.
Those are our signals, so
Okay.
we get
I'm
to deal
sorry.
with those.
Sorry. Okay, another time. That's
Yeah.
fine. I saw no more. That's good.
Yeah, we do realize that there have been a lot of
Okay.
people that have been diverting to that as get around, and yeah, there's not really a great answer to that.
Nothing you can do
Yeah.
for that right now. Patience.
Yeah, patience is right. Thank you.
Okay, for our final item, any communication or items for future agenda?
As indicated earlier, I just would ask that city officials or city employees, city staff, look at our special assessments related to curb and gutters and provide some counsel and guidance on how to move forward.
Can I ask, would that include sidewalks then?
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
Probably. Based on the conversation tonight, I would think that would make sense.
Okay.
So that we discuss it again in Public Works and then be prepared. At some point, if we can agree on something, we'd pass it on to Finance and Council.
Exactly. So I'm thinking you guys would go back and maybe draft a potential revision or a new ordinance to better address this.
Yeah. Yep. Good.
Any other comments or communication?
I'll make the motion that we adjourn.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned. Good night. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.